We will get right to the video right after this brief message from our sponsor.
Hey, can you hear me? Alright, we're gonna have to talk about this first before we get into the video. I'm not quite sure how someone named Sean Strickland, who just went out there in a co-main event in his most recent outing, he sat on the sideline, he waited, he didn't want to fight Robert Whittaker, he avoided that fight, he sat on the sideline, he goes out there against Paulo Costa. I mean, when the hell is the last time that Paulo Costa beat an actual contender? When the hell is the last time that he actually did that? Huh? You couldn't tell me. When's the last time he actually beat somebody on the UFC roster? You couldn't tell me. Huh? I get he had a good fight with DDP, but what have you done for me lately? Isn't that the motto of the UFC? And then we got Khamzat Chimaev, Boers. He goes out there and he takes down Robert Whittaker in a matter of seconds, strangles him, and breaks his jaw in a round. And they're not trying to give this man a title shot after that performance? Somebody is gonna have to explain that to me.
So the UFC just absolutely screwed Khamzat Chimaev out of a well-earned title fight opportunity against Dricus du Plessis, as during the UFC 310 broadcast over this past weekend, they announced that for UFC 312, DDP will be defending his middleweight title against Sean Strickland. So what I want to do in this video is, first, I want to address the elephant in the room, because right now, the MMA community is going batshit crazy, right? You got people out there that are like, Strickland should have gotten the opportunity. It should have been Khamzat. So I'm going to give my take on this, break this down, and kind of maybe bring some sort of something that makes sense to why the UFC would not put Khamzat in the title opportunity right now. But I first want to discuss probably why you clicked on this video, and that's to discuss the outstanding co-main event booked also between Zhang Weili and Tatiana Suarez, and just these other, absolutely outstanding matchups on this card. Obviously, I'm kidding, but let's hop into this, man. I want to talk about this between DDP and Strickland, and I want to break this fight down, but I got to give my thoughts on this whole ordeal. And to me, this is not a good idea by the UFC. This isn't a good idea by the UFC. And I'm not one of those guys who sits there and goes, Sean Strickland's done nothing to deserve a title shot, because I don't think that that's true, right? I think Sean Strickland, he has some solid wins inside the UFC, of course, over his past few fights. He lost to Dricus du Plessis, went out there and beat Israel Adesanya. He took on Abus Magomedov, so he's done some things inside the division. But for me, it's the precedent that the UFC is setting by giving Sean Strickland this opportunity. And what I mean by that is, you get Dricus du Plessis, right? He goes out there and has a close fight with Sean Strickland, and it wasn't a great fight. I think it was a pretty solid fight, right? It had some good back and forths. At the end of the day, I did think DDP won the fight. I thought it was close, but I did think DDP won the fight. So the UFC says, look, Strickland, we're not giving you a rematch, right? You went out there, you were the champion, you have no defenses, you're not Izzy, who's defended it multiple times. You're going to have to do something else to earn another opportunity. And Strickland goes, all right, here's the thing, you guys. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to fight, Paulo Costa, big old Costa out there, the big guy that, everyone calls a KO artist who's not KOing anybody. And you go out there against him and you put on an absolute stinker, right? One of the worst performances of the year between them both, right? Everyone's like, oh, Strickland this, Strickland that. It takes two to tango. And Paulo Costa has not been the same guy since he fought Israel Adesanya. He's like, thinks he's Izzy. He's got this 72-inch reach and he's fighting on the outside like he's some long-rangey karate guy. And I don't understand that. He used to dig his feet in, move forward, get in the phone booth, and he's pretty Costa now. He doesn't want to get hit, and he's trying to play this stick and move kind of game that just doesn't fit his style. So, and on top of that, when's the last time Paulo Costa's beaten anyone that's actually currently on the roster in the middleweight division? All those guys they're all out of the UFC. All of them. So that's who Strickland just won a split decision against. While DDP's out there defending his title against a very, very good version of Israel Adesanya, a guy that came in with much better boxing, fixed some of the holes in his game, was highly motivated, spent some time away, DDP goes out there and subs him. That's incredibly impressive. We've never seen anybody do that to Izzy. That's what DDP just did. And then Sean Strickland, the last performance that we remember from him is like they say, you're only as good as your last fight, which I don't necessarily always agree with that. I don't think that you should just forget about the other fights. But when it's coming to a title opportunity, what did you do in your last time out? What did Sean Strickland do? A jab and teep fest, which actually he threw less in the Costa fight. It was basically all defense. He had very, very low output, and it was so bad that someone actually thought Costa won the fight. And I didn't think Costa won the fight, but there was such low output from Sean Strickland. It was a very good defensive performance, but he threw nothing out there. And what the UFC just showed is, okay, so if we tell you you have to go out there and get a win to get another title opportunity, you could go out there and do the bare fucking minimum to get another shot. That's literally what they just did. Did they not? Did they not do that? They just did that. Because Sean Strickland went out there against Costa, and a guy who's already very reserved, he was even more reserved. I mean, he threw nothing out there. Costa was sitting on the back foot, sticking and moving the whole time. Now, again, I mean, that's on Costa too. He was boring as well. He didn't even dig his feet in and try to slug it all, right? And Strickland was just kind of marching him down, moving forward, and Costa had no answers. So it takes two to tango, but that's Strickland's last performance. Khamzat Chimaev just went out there at UFC 308 and absolutely dismantled one of the best middleweights we've ever seen that's still in his prime. Robert Whittaker's still in his prime, a guy that just went out there and beat Paulo Costa. Way more impressive than Sean Strickland did. He just went out there and KO'd Ikram Aleskarov. And then he goes out there and he's so badass, he's like, I'm not just going to wait around, while Strickland's like, oh, I'm not fighting Robert Whittaker. I'm going to sit on the sidelines and wait for a title shot. Doesn't Dana White say, we don't reward waiting? He just did. So that's two. The precedent of you could just skate by with a boring performance to get another shot, and then you could sit and wait. Dana says waiting is never good. Well, I guess for Sean Strickland it is. Because Khamzat Chimaev is one of the biggest stars in the sport. Strike while the iron is hot here, dog. Why are we not putting Khamzat in there with DDP right now? That's the fight that everyone wants to see. He just went out there and made Robert Whittaker look like an amateur, like a fish out of water. Whittaker had no answers for Khamzat Chimaev. It was one of the most impressive wins we have ever seen in the history of the sport. A guy like Chimaev, where there were all these questions, where I said Khamzat's going to dismantle him inside 2 rounds. It happened to be in the first round, and everyone's, you're an idiot, man. Robert Whittaker, and he is great, right? But everyone was overlooking Khamzat. They're like, he's going to get exposed. This is the end of Khamzat. And I'm like, no, it's not. He goes out there, does all that. And that's not enough to earn a title shot. Then what is? Well, I know the answer. Have a close fight with the champion, go out there, skate by on a horrible, embarrassing performance, and then you just get another title opportunity. With all that being said, what does this fight look like? Well, I think it looks pretty much exactly what it did the first time, right? The thing with Dricus du Plessis, this is a guy that is so dynamic, right? And I know that when you watch him on the feed, it's not the most aesthetically pleasing thing. He doesn't have picture-perfect technique when it comes to the striking, but he's very diverse, right? He's got good power in his hands. He's very explosive. He's tough. He's gritty. He's got outstanding cardio. He's got kicks. He's got, great wrestling. He has absolutely everything that you could basically want in a fighter. And there's a lot of things that DDP could do differently against Sean Strickland, whereas on the other side, what is it that Sean Strickland is going to do differently in this fight against DDP? What is it that he's going to do differently? Now, I know DDP doesn't have the best defense, right? He is very hittable. He doesn't move his head a lot. And Sean Strickland, he has one of the best jabs in the sport. He's got an outstanding jab. He has a very good right hand that he occasionally throws from time to time. He's got a very good front kick. I know people are like, all he does is jab and teep, but he's very good with it, right? He's very effective with it. He's got that Muay Thai stance, walks forward in basically a Philly shell in a Thai stance to be able to check the kicks, be able to block everything. And he's a very, very hard guy to deal with if you cannot stop him from moving forward. But to me, DDP has all of the tools to beat Sean Strickland again, right? I don't think there's anything that Sean Strickland could do differently against DDP other than maybe be a little bit more aggressive. But the issue that he's going to have with that is because he stands so upright and the way that he likes to fight, DDP is just going to level change. He's going to level change. He's going to take him down, keep him guessing, implement ground and pound. And I see a scenario to where we see DDP win this fight by finish. And I really think that that is actually probably going to happen here, because when I look at this fight and I watch back the first fight, Sean Strickland, his jab was landing at will. I mean, he was absolutely picking DDP apart with the jab. He was landing some really good front kicks. He damn near checked every kick that DDP threw. But where did DDP have success? He had good success when he mixed in the takedowns. He was able to take Sean down because Sean is so upright. But the thing with Strickland that gets overlooked, he actually has really good grappling. He has very good submission defense. He has very good, ability to get back to his feet after getting taken down. So I don't really think DDP is just going to be able to hold him down in terms of the grappling. Maybe he's able to find a submission as they try to scramble back to their feet. But I think when you look at this, and if you ask me, well, who could do a lot more differently in a rematch than the other? It's definitely going to be DDP. It's going to be DDP because he has a much broader skill set than a guy like Strickland who kind of just flails his arms and defends, which again, he's very effective. He's got very good defense. He's got an outstanding jab. He's got those annoying front kicks that can just, brutal up your midsection. They can take the wind out of you. They are annoying and they're frustrating. And he uses kind of that high knee, marching knee type of technique. You saw that against Paulo Costa to get you moving backwards. And if you decide to throw a kick in the middle of that, you're just going to bash right into my shin. So Strickland, I think, has made a few adjustments, but not enough, right? I think DDP is a guy who just is a world-class fighter. I think that he's a complete fighter, where I think that Sean Strickland is very effective at what he does, but is very limited. So if you ask me coming into a rematch, I just don't see how Sean wins this fight. I don't see what he could possibly do different. I thought that he fought a really, really good fight against DDP. I know people thought it was boring, but for Sean Strickland, I thought that was one of the best versions that we've seen from the guy. I thought that he was in outstanding condition. I thought that he was very dialed in. His jab was money. It was landing a lot. I don't know what he could do better. Because a lot of the time people talk about how great of a boxer he is. He's got a great jab and he has a good straight right hand. Outside of that, his other, boxing combinations are very sloppy. He kind of wing shots. He gets very loose in terms of the technique. I think DDP is the more well-rounded fighter, and he had a lot of success when he would blitz in on Strickland, because the problem with Sean, he doesn't have that X factor to be able to gain DDP's respect, right? Whereas with some of these other guys, they got power. They could hurt you. They could dip underneath, take you down, try to submit you. What does Sean have that makes you fear him? Other than good cardio and a forward pace that can be a little bit hard to deal with, DDP's not worried about that. He's not worried about that. He can switch stances. He can blitz in and throw combinations. He's got kicks. He's got good defense. He's got good grappling. He's the full package. He's going to be very confident coming into this fight, and I believe he finishes Sean Strickland in this matchup. I really do, because guys, I don't think that gets talked about enough. Is Sean Strickland looked good in that fight? He did. That was one of the best versions I think that we've seen from Sean, and it wasn't enough. It was not enough. And I know that people could say, oh, well, it was a close fight and maybe Strickland could have won. I still thought DDP won the fight. I thought it was very, very close. Don't get me wrong. What this comes down to for me, I don't see what Sean Strickland, other than throwing a few more right hands, what could he do differently against DDP to win this time? I don't know what he could do. And I see a lot of opportunity for DDP, extending the combinations, mixing in the takedowns, trying to get to Strickland's back, wearing on him, trying to land some ground and pound, mix up the combinations, attack the body a little bit more to get that hand to come down, because we know Strickland with that backhand and that shell, he likes to over parry, try to get that hand away from him, try to land a head kick. There is a lot of opportunity for DDP in this fight. He's got a good team behind him, as does Strickland, right? Eric Nixick, outstanding coach. They'll have a good game plan. The only way Sean wins this fight is if he's more aggressive. He's going to have to be willing to open up more. But unfortunately, for Sean, every single fight that we see of Strickland, we're like, you got to open up more. You got to do more. You got to do more. And if guys don't wilt to the pressure and the bully mentality of Sean Strickland, you could beat this guy. And DDP is one of those dudes who is not going to be afraid of the pressure of Strickland. He's not going to be afraid of the cardio. He can match him in all of those areas. And then he's got the durability, the power, and the more well-rounded skill set, at least that he uses inside of the octagon, to get this thing done against Sean Strickland. So to me, I just don't see what Sean could do differently. I think DDP is the more complete fighter. I think he's a hard matchup for Sean Strickland, because if Strickland's moving forward and he's just kind of dictating the pace and controlling the fight, he could just jab and teep, his way to a decision and pick anybody apart. But if you don't let him do that and you put him on the back foot like DDP did, he's not the same fighter. He doesn't fight well moving backwards. I think DDP will be even more grapple heavy. He will look to attack with submissions. He will look to attack with ground and pound and extend the combinations to get to Sean, because he was a little patient early on. But as the fight progressed, you got to see DDP open up, extend the combinations to where he was able to get behind that very good defense of Sean Strickland and start to land and hurt him. So to me, this just comes down to, I think DDP has a better overall skill set. I think that he went out there, put on a great performance against Izzy. I think since winning the title, he's even leveled up even more, right? We hear guys talk about that. When they win the title, they tend to elevate their game. I think that's what we're looking at with DDP here. I think that Sean Strickland, a guy that didn't want to fight Robert Whittaker, didn't want to stay active, wanted to wait around for a title shot, goes in there and puts on a snoozer against Paulo Costa. I just don't think that that guy is enough to beat Dricus du Plessis. And again, it would have been a lot more fun with Khamzat in there. In my opinion, that was the guy that should have gotten the shot. But either way, this is still, I think, going to be a fun fight because I think that we're going to see these guys land a lot of shots on each other. I think the Strickland jab is going to be money. I think that DDP, if he can solve that jab of Sean Strickland, he's going to have a lot of success in this matchup. I believe he does. I think we're looking at a finish. Maybe third, fourth round where DDP extends the combinations, lands a good shot on Strickland, takes him down, lands some nasty ground and pound to where we get the referee to hop in and stop the fight. That's how I see this one playing out. Should have been Khamzat, but at the end of the day, this is what the UFC decided to do. I don't see how Strickland wins. I thought he looked good the first time against DDP. Wasn't enough. So I want to hear from you all down in the comments. Like this video. Let me know who you think wins this fight and if you thought Strickland deserved the title opportunity. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss an upload. I would appreciate it. See you next time.